Welcome to Every Hornets Box Score, the only podcast that dares look at every single Charlotte Hornets, yes, and Bobcats box score. I'm your host, Doug Branson. I'm joined today by Locked On Hornets family member, contributor, shoe aficionada, fashionista.
Not as our other friend.
That's right, not Edwards. Not talking about him. I'm talking about David Walker. David, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm ready for some hoops. I'm ready to talk some old school hoops, Doug, with you. I appreciate you putting me on this card. This is for the folks using the visuals. This is awesome.
Yeah, we've got some new looks here on Every Hornets box score. I'm telling you, I'm just upping the game, trying to up the game every episode. So the look on YouTube now is a throwback. This whole show is a throwback, so I figured the graphics should reflect that, should be a throwback. This is a throwback to the trading card era of our youths, and got some fly trading cards here. We are like little animated, help me, I'm trapped inside of a trading card. Yeah, that's awesome. The deal. Were you big into trading? Were you big into trading cards back in the day?
These look like NBA hoops graphics. I think that was the card that looks like maybe.
That's what I had to look back because I modeled it on the Johnny Newman NBA hoops card that I have back on my shelf, and so it was the NBA hoops cards.
I feel like one of us should have a Trapuka-esque perm. I guess I'm maybe the closest to that. Maybe you have the mustache, which he didn't have in Charlotte, but he did have in Detroit. But this takes me back to the days of the Beckett Sports Monthly. You didn't know what that was, but that's what, when you got your cards, when you went to get your pack of cards, you would also pick up an issue of Beckett, and that you could look up, I guess it was monthly, what your cards were worth. It was the internet, StockX, and whatever else is used for cards before that. It was a great time. I think you can still get it.
It was an interesting time when you could only get your information once a month. Once a month, you could get updated on. That's it. And then the rest of the time, you just had to sit and look at your cards and wonder how much they're worth. Now, obviously, you can get all of that information instantly. I do want to, before we jump into the show, we've got to go to the Bees machine to get our random Hornets box score. I can tell you that the era, so we've broken all of the box scores up into different eras. And so this show, the era will be the Bobcats era. So we're going to get some kind of Bobcats box score, but we don't know what the Bees machine will throw at us yet. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to pick David's brain about what's going on with the Hornets right now. There's some controversy swirling around this team, which has been just kind of the story of the offseason. We're actually taping this on opening night, October 19th. They're going to play the Spurs tonight. So I want to pick your brain, David, about what's going on around the team. But first, before we do that, I don't have to, but I really want to shout out some of the people that have been supporting this endeavor of mine, Every Hornets Box Score, and the podcast on our Substack, which is everyhornetsboxscore.com. That's where I'm posting my game notes. I've had those up for free all summer league and preseason long. The game notes are going to go to the paying subscribers, but we got a lot. This podcast will remain free. The YouTube channel will remain free. There's a lot of free stuff, but I got to shout out some of the supporters. Some new subscribers. Suman is a yearly plus subscriber, so you can subscribe for the year for $50 or $5 a month, or you can just be a contributor to the show by signing up for the year and Suman went over the top and is a big supporter of the show. He's been supporting Locked On Hornets for a long time too, so thank you. Shout out to you. DBK, BR Bean, Ian, Matt. DBK and BR Bean are yearly subscribers. Thank you. That really helps me kind of project out what we can invest into this show. And then Ian, Matt, thank you for the monthly subscription. We've got some returning subscribers. Andre, 3 months. Arjun, G. Matt, Breyer, all 4-month subscribers. And then Keith and BF Beck have been yearly subscribers for several months now. So thank you to all the people that are keeping this particular hive alive. And please, if you haven't yet, consider just subscribe to the Substack for free. That'll get you the monthly, that'll get you all the updates to your email. But definitely, if you want to support the show, please do. Okay, David, the Charlotte Hornets. The fan base is not talking like taking the pulse of the fan base, it's not good right now. Everybody's kind of in a down spirit. Yeah, the Miles Bridges felony domestic charges happen pre-draft. Then you go through an offseason where you only sign Cody Martin, don't do much else, no more help for LaMelo Ball. He gets less help than he had last year. And then on top of that, several days before the start of the season, James Bouknight, a second-year player, rookie, didn't get much playing time, was looking for minutes in this new rotation, new head coach, new opportunity. He is was arrested and charged with DUI, driving under the influence, and more details. The details that keep coming out about this, David Walker, keep getting more sad, disappointing, frightening almost. You're wondering if James Bouknight is okay. He was found in his car, non-responsive, would not wake up, and had a gun in his lap, a high blood alcohol level, and it took a lot of effort to get him awake in his car. He was blocking traffic. His car was running. The car, I guess, ran into some cop cars. I just keep going because these details just keep coming out, and none of it looks good. He did come back to practice, did speak to reporters, apologize for being a distraction. But David, like, how are we supposed to feel about this offseason?
Well, I mean, first of all, just on the Bouknight thing, I really hope someone's talking to him, or he's talking to someone, and he can get the help that he needs, because that's just not a good situation, at all. Being out that late, and then you add on everything else that was in there. So, I mean, we're all pulling for him. Of course, we've been waiting for him to do well on the court, but this is bigger than that right now. We just want him to be safe and be healthy. So hopefully he can get that. Mm-hmm. But when you tack this on to everything that's gone on with the Hornets offseason, I mean, my gosh, up to the bitter end, it's just one thing after another that a lot of they can't control. These are individuals making choices away from the team, away from the, facility and all that. But from a fan point of view, honestly, it's beaten me down to the point of the beginning of the season has so little excitement and anticipation at this point. Of course, LaMelo's out. That's a big part of it. But, I'm watching the Lakers last night, and of course there's surrounding talks around Russell Westbrook all the time. Mm-hmm. And I find myself now almost rooting for that, but so they can just get someone in the locker room who is a professional basketball player who does act like an adult most of the time around his profession. Mm-hmm. And some of that's about Westbrook, but some of that's about just how fast it's dizzying how fast this locker room seems to have fallen out of the good culture locker room. There's not a lot of veteran voices in there. The ones that are there don't seem to be speaking that loudly. Are they turning the keys out? Is this LaMelo's team? Is this not LaMelo's team? We don't know. And that brings us to the point that you guys have been hammering, and we've talked about. It's like they have to choose a path. The Hornets need to choose a path fast. I suppose they're going to let things play out for the next couple of weeks, let LaMelo get back and see what happens. It just doesn't feel like they've gotten better. I don't think they've gotten better. And there's still so much uncertainty, and they haven't made any moves. So it's been a very rough offseason for the Hornets, for Hornets fans. And it just has a feeling of something that it's not going to take much to go bad really, really fast. And the season hasn't even started yet. So it's a weird place to be coming off a season where, they had a winning season, Doug. They had a winning season last year, a couple of months ago. They were winning.
Almost put a 45 on there, yeah.
Exactly. So
you bring up an interesting point, and this is a Hornets history podcast. And if we look back just into the recent history in the Kemba Walker era of the Charlotte Hornets, this was a professional locker room. Like during it was
Marvin Williams
a lot. Yeah, there was a veteran laden, and it was sort of a lunch pail locker room of guys just coming, doing their job. It was a boring locker room, right? There was not a lot of controversy, not a lot of wins either. Not a lot of no playoff success. I got a few wins, but no playoff series winning success. But it was always viewed as a good kind of boring locker room where none of that was going to get into the way. And then they've shifted obviously into a rebuild, and that with that came youth. And I think that they've just waited too long to bring in some veteran experience to kind of guide this thing. I don't feel like that there's really any unifying guidance within the locker room from a player perspective, and I certainly don't see any kind of strategy, communication coming from the front office at this point. And we haven't gotten any kind of communication on the Miles Bridges situation. Very little. They've let Clifford didn't really say much. James Bouknight said a little bit. But nothing about, and again, I'm looking at this from the perspective of a fan buying tickets or a season ticket holder wanting to know whether they should renew, season tickets or continue doing that. And it's just like, at what point, when you don't say anything as an organization about what's going on, you're allowing other people to sort of set your agenda and to make your reputation for you. And I just think that's a big mistake. I'll also ask you this, David, because I know you watched, it's NBA opening night last night and a lot of coverage. I don't know what's sadder, that the Hornets are experiencing all of this controversy or that it's getting zero attention from a league perspective, right? I mean, they did this whole thing on Draymond Green, and I'm not asking for it. I'm not asking for the
How did they do that doc so quickly? I mean, my God.
They were like, we got gold once he punched, because they were already doing the documentary, and then once he punched, they were like, we got gold, baby, we got gold. But like, I'm not asking for that attention. Like, I don't want Charles Barkley calling the Charlotte Hornets the Charlotte Warrants. Like, they don't need any help being any more of like a joke, because people love to pile on MJ as the owner, right? So, but at the same time, like, they're generating, even through all this controversy, all of these issues, it's just nobody's interested in talking about it on a national perspective, on a national level.
And maybe that's good. I mean, at this point, I'm honestly worried about the stink, filtering down to LaMelo. And you've already started it last time we were talking, there's always folks out there saying, I don't know about this LaMelo guy. Wants to be famous, not concentrate on basketball. Like, how much can he do?
David Thorpe. It was David Thorpe. David Thorpe did this on a podcast. He did clarify that he clarified that. So he talked to a player who they played in preseason, and that player was quoted as saying, the Hornets are the LaMelo's trash and the Hornets are trash. Apparently they clarified that, and he was talking only about defense. That player was saying that LaMelo was trash at defense, and that's why the Hornets were trash at defense.
Okay. Well, not wrong, I suppose. But they won't take much for that vibe to get there, because guess who he's always compared to? Anthony Edwards. That team's up and coming. Anthony Edwards, I get a lot of buzz, was in a movie. Let's talk about wanting to be famous. This guy was in a movie. I don't hear anybody complaining about that. But, I a little bit worried about that, just the stink of the Hornets getting on LaMelo. You couple that with, I don't want to. I was texting with a buddy today, and he warned me, getting into the fear of LaMelo not re-signing. But you've seen that out there. I mean, this has been out there now. People are starting to talk about this. Will he be the first guy to not do his rookie extension ever? And so if things go badly, you have to say, well, hopefully they're communicating with him. Hopefully they're telling him the plan. Hopefully they're selling him on something. But that goes back to our point. What are they doing? What are they selling him on? What's the plan? We don't know. We just have not heard anything. We haven't seen anything. And you're right. At this point, they have just waited too long. And the Lakers thing, I don't know how much more patience the Lakers have waiting to do anything with Westbrook. I mean, but in halftime of that game last night, Barkley's basically pleading for them to trade him already. Miles Turner is out there, so
they need shooting. I mean, that's the Hornets. I think, it seems almost too perfect, because the Hornets have shooting. They've got Terry Rozier, who's a good 3-point shooter. They've got Gordon Hayward, who's actually a really good 3-point shooter. Doesn't take a lot of them, but I guess could in a certain situation. So it almost makes too much sense. Yeah.
Now, we say all that. Like, I still think you've just got to let the first, couple weeks get LaMelo back play out, right? I mean, just to be fair, you have to give him a chance. The Clifford thing still just feels so weird, how all that went down. The fact that he's here, how long is he here? It doesn't feel like that long. We'll see. you got to let some things play out. The schedule is favorable, to start out. We'll see how they look. But certainly not much about the preseason gave you positive vibes, how they were going to play. The starting five, still can be fine, still can be good. Clifford said he's going to play 10 guys, though. So I don't know. We shall see. We shall see, Doug. It's a good thing we're talking about the Bobcats today. It's a dark time. You're feeling kind of dark right now.
Yeah, we'll see. It could. Well, and the thing is, we don't know. The Bees machine could throw us one of the really terrible Bobcats teams, or there were a couple of playoff opportunities for those Bobcats. So we will see. That's a great transition. Let's go ahead and head to our time machine, which we call the Bees machine. It selects a random box score, takes us back in to the Hornets past. With that, I'm going to hit the button. Let's go.
Bees! Bees everywhere!
Yes, give us this box score. Oh, here we go. Charlotte
baby.
Bobcats at the Miami Heat, a storied rivalry. The Bobcats versus the Heat, January 2nd, the day after the new year of 2010, the year of our Lord. Charlotte Bobcats win this game, David, 107-97. Okay, so we've got our box score. David, you and I have to go hit the books. We got to do a little research. And when we come back on Every Hornets box score, we will dive deep into 2010. I can already tell you this is the Larry Brown playoff season. Stack Jack had an amazing year. Gerald Wallace had an amazing year. We're going to go do our research. And when we come back, more on the 2010 Charlotte Bobcats. You're watching Every Hornets box score. So I've got some really great news to share with you, and that's that this podcast, Every Hornets Box Score, will remain free in perpetuity without any ads. So you're not going to hear any mattress ads. You're not going to hear any CBD ads. Nothing wrong with those ads, but, they can kind of get annoying on these podcasts, right? That's going to be free. There's a free YouTube channel right now where we're doing some cool game streams and some other experimental stuff that all revolve around the Charlotte Hornets, and I'm producing all of this content for you. And the only thing that I ask is that you support us by subscribing for free on Every Hornets box score. And if you like this content, if you think you're getting something out of this content, there is a way on Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com, to become a paid contributor. And that money goes directly into the tools and the things that are necessary to devote the time that it takes to put this content together. So if you like it, consider supporting us. We're going to keep the podcast free. Speaking of the podcast, let's get back to the podcast. Back here on Every Hornets box score, Charlotte Bobcats 107, Miami Heat 97, January 2nd, 2010. The Charlotte Bobcats of the 2010s, the Larry Brown playoff year. David, as we peruse this box score, tell me what you remember about that playoff season.
What time did this game tip off? Is it a 3:30 tip I saw up there?
Ooh, that's a 3:30 p.m. tip in Miami, Florida.
Okay, now we're talking. We're getting a peek behind the curtain here. Maybe an advantage they have. Usually it's the Heat that have that advantage on that early tip, but maybe the Hornets they all made bed check that night, because historically in Miami it's a little bit of a tough go for those early tips. But yeah, this is a culture clash, Doug. Of course, you know about Heat culture. And this was Bobcats.
I think this was pre.
Larry Brown
I
culture.
think this was pre.
This is pre-culture.
I think this was pre-culture. The culture had not quite defined itself.
If you ask them,
yet.
it's always been there. It's always been there since Ronnie Cycler. It's all.
old Patty. If you just ask old Patty, he said he's always been there. But the Heat right now featuring Dwayne Wade, Quentin Richardson, Carlos Arroyo, Michael Beasley, Jermaine O'Neal. That's your starting five. 34 minutes from Adonis Haslam off the bench. Mario Chalmers gets 12. But a lot of starter minutes in this one. Man, I mean, we're early in the season to be playing.
So that was
guys.
Haslam's, 15th year?
Right, 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd been in the league 20 years to this point.
Okay.
Joel Anthony, Daquan Cook, Darrell Wright. A lot of names here for Miami.
One team.
For your Bobcats. Great starting five here. Stack Jack in his prime. Gerald Wallace in his prime. Boris Diaw in his prime rib. Raymond Felton. Nazir Muhammad anchoring the center. You got Flip Murray off the bench. DJ Augustine, I believe this was
Larry
his
Brown's
second
favorite.
year in the league. And Jop getting 17 minutes with in this one. Derek Brown also getting 8 minutes. Good bench numbers, good plus-minus bench numbers for Flip, DJ, and Derek Brown getting some positive 17s and positive 25. DJ Augustine, good one. 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, which I don't think to this point he was known as like a marksman. So 13 points, didn't do much else, but a nice little punch off the bench for DJ, who was sitting behind Raymond at this point.
Yeah, 0 of 2 for Ray from 3. That would kind of plague him. Gerald took 2 threes as well. Stack Jack, man. I swear. Now, you talk about this version of the Hornets Bobcats, and I really loved Steven Jackson on this team. One of my all-time favorite Charlotte NBA players, period, because he was just so good, so talented, so well-rounded. I know Gerald was obviously a fan favorite and a Hornets Bobcats, well, Bobcats only legend on this team and this run. But, I mean, Steven Jackson was really the best basketball player, I mean, maybe that the Bobcats ever had.
Yeah, when he was good, and Larry Brown used to talk about this all the time. Like when Stack Jack was focused on getting to the rim, he was a great player. When he was taking pull-up jump shots, one-on-one, ISO, Jack, that's when things kind of went awry for him. But in this one, 11 of 20 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, 35 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover. I mean, we've had some great Stack Jack games selected randomly already for us in the Bobcats era. We've yet, I think, really to get a sad Bobcats game. But this was, at part of peak Bobcats, the pace was murder. 86.3 is probably not a terribly fun game to watch. But the Hornets,
there we go. Hornets. First quarter. There's the sleepy start I was looking for. Okay.
Yeah, 17 points for the Bobcats in the first quarter to Miami's 30, but then rebounding with a second quarter. I'm interested. I'm going to pull up. We're going to go into the Observer archives here and see what we got. Picture of Stack Jack and a young Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade. Wow.
Jackson, the headline is Jackson controls emotion, game from the GOAT, Rick Bonnell.
There we go.
Here's some observations from Rick on this game. DJ Augustine looked like a real live lottery pick for long stretches of Saturday's game. That feels like a compliment, but it also feels like an insult, right?
Yeah.
DJ, a lot more was expected of DJ Augustine than was delivered, unfortunately. Was
the first in a long line of lottery picks that didn't.
But people wouldn't bring his name up immediately, right? Like when you're thinking of disappointing draft picks, I think people don't get to DJ until a lot later.
Yeah,
they would get to Zeller before DJ.
Yeah, which is odd. DJ was just, it never popped, right? I mean, kind of always solid and boring. Plus, he had plenty of revenge games that most people will probably remember as well. So, always seemed to come back and kill him. Just still a weird draft pick. I mean, just super weird. You had Felton there. I don't know if we have the information on that draft. I believe it was the Ajinka draft as well. So, double downing on that weird factor in that draft. A lot of it, I believe, behind the wishings of Larry Brown. So, yeah, good for DJ.
Well, it says here, his body language said he's recovering from a long bout of self-consciousness. Quote, I felt good out there, not all tight and stuff, unquote, Augustine said with an obvious sense of relief. So, Rick, observing there that DJ's start to his career, in a lot of ways, I mean, DJ got a great opportunity because of the situation. The Bobcats weren't very good, and there wasn't a lot of stellar guard play. Like, I mean, you're competing with Flip Murray and some other names like that. So, but I think, if we want to draw some parallels, at least mentally, I mean, you can look at this situation as a little bit similar to James Bouknight, where the start was not, you were a lottery pick, there were a lot of expectations, and all of a sudden it's not turning out as well as you'd like. And certainly I think in 2010, we're still in this era of basketball where I think lottery picks were expected to come in and contribute a little bit more immediately than they are now. Now, so much of it is on potential, right? You're a lottery pick, and it's almost like if you're a lottery pick and you come in and contribute immediately, it's a little bit special because, you know, a lot of these guys are getting drafted at 19 and 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And DJ, you know, did have his shots. It falls into that for me. You mentioned Book Knight, also Malik Monk would fall into that category as well. It's just a guard who never quite popped here, but I think Malik probably had a little better journey here, I guess, than DJ. Just never seemed to spark it here. I was going down there. I saw that there's a little kerfuffle in the stands there. And the Heat, this may be part of Heat culture. There's somebody in the stand blowing whistles during the game, and Larry Brown, I can guarantee, did not enjoy that.
No, old school Larry Brown was not into any kind of shenanigans happening in the crowd. I would remember that from Miami Heat away games when they would travel to Charlotte. I do remember this. I would hear like phantom whistles that were not coming from the referees. I feel like maybe this is just some Miami Heat tomfoolery, some fans.
Shenanigans. Respect the game. Don't disrespect it. Not with Larry Brown there.
No, they did not. Unfortunately, in this one, they did not find the culprit. Now, here's something interesting from the Charlotte Observer. This is a column from Rick Bonnell where he makes some predictions about the Charlotte Bobcats, David. So I thought we could take a look at these predictions and see if they actually came true. So the first one is that the team is finally sold. Rick writes, I hear Bob Johnson is serious again about selling the team. Team's not that old for Rick to be writing again. Bob Johnson felt like he immediately regretted that purchasing decision, right?
Yeah.
Well, after C-Set. I think after C-Set failed, which, by the way, David, have you heard about the Clippers, Steve Ballmer starting Clipper Vision, or I guess taking Clipper Vision out of beta? So what this is, you can stream all of the Clippers games via Clippers Vision, and there's like 7 different feeds. Some of them are in different languages. Yeah. One of them is like just a straight RSN broadcast feed. Another one, they're bringing in Baron Davis. They're bringing in Paul Pierce and like people who have played for the Clippers, notable players, to come in and do a Manning cast type of feed. But Ballmer is like taking all of his money and just dumping it into, not all of it, I mean, probably like $5 to us, right? But like he is going all in on this Clipper Vision thing. And it made me, when I heard about the news, it made me think of how they tried the C-Set thing for the Bobcats. C-Set
should have been. He was just too far ahead of his time, Doug. You know, he was just...
Well, because back then... you know, ease of getting this kind of stuff. Now we're trained in streaming. We're trained in like, well, if I can't get it on cable, I can go find it somewhere else. But then they were trying to convince people, hey, this is a place to get your Bobcats, but you have to buy it separately on your cable package. There were just too many like constraints for C-Set.
And your equestrian. It was Bobcats and equestrian events, horse jumping mostly. I don't know why it didn't. You could bundle it. If you bundled it, I think you got a little deal.
Oh, sick. But of course, the Bobcats weren't winning. That was another problem. You know, the city had soured on basketball. Instead of going, hey, why don't we do everything in our power to get the city back on our side? They said, no, let's create an exclusive place. And anyway, so Bob Johnson was selling the team, or at least interested. And this, David, do you think this came true or did it not come true this season?
He did sell. I don't know if this was the actual sale.
It was 2010. Michael Jordan bought the team.
Of course, yeah, of course. I didn't see him mentioned in there, so it must not have been any rumblings. I mean, we don't see MJ's name revealed in there, do we?
No, Michael Jordan, but I think he probably was in all of those kind of conversations. This is interesting.
He was a minority owner, right? Or he was part of the ownership group.
Yeah.
Or did he? Okay, yeah.
No, he bought a majority stake.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. Certainly, this is what Rick Bonnell writes about Bob Johnson. Certainly, he's made numerous miscalculations and gaffes, but anyone who thinks Johnson's selling is a panacea is missing the real issue. Rick was pretty dead on about that one because things for the franchise did not really improve with new ownership. All right, second prediction. Larry Brown could be gone after this season.
Yes, true.
Well, true, kind of, right? Because Larry Brown would go to the playoff. They would go to the playoffs this season. They would lose in 4 games to the Orlando Magic. Dwight Howard, not Dwight Howard. I did look this up. Dwight Howard did not. He was great in that series, but I don't know if you remember this series. It was Jameer Nelson who
Oh my God, yeah.
did not. Here's the thing: went to the All-Star game the year before this. Well, strangely, like if you look at his numbers, they don't look like all-star numbers to me. It must have been just a weak guard year for the Eastern Conference, but had a worse year following that, but dominated that first series with scoring like 30 points a game against the Bobcats.
Yeah.
You expected Dwight
to
Howard.
Rick.
Yeah, you expected Dwight Howard to dominate, but it was really Jameer Nelson who helped sweep the Bobcats. But Larry Brown would go on to continue coaching, but then get dumped in the middle of the season. And the Bobcats, Walker or David, do you remember? I keep doing this. It's tough. It's tough when your last name is my other co-host's first name.
I know.
David, do you remember who they went to off of Larry Brown?
Was this in season? And
This was in season firing the following year.
Oh, this was Paul Silas.
That's right. So this is not the first time that Jordan has looked to an old coach.
They brought him back, and I'm saying this is starting to get a real bit of deja vu here. They got their people. They like to bring people in that know the culture or lack thereof, what have you. Now did Dunlap follow? Was this the Dunlap follow Silas in 2011?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
Dunlap.
My God. Oh my God.
Yeah, it got pretty bad.
It got pretty bad.
So then the third prediction for Rick is that Boris Diaw will keep looking out of place. He writes, he is extremely smart.
You say out of shape or you said out of place?
No, out of place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, out of place. Rick writes, he is extremely smart, both in general and basketball-wise, and yet he still hasn't figured out how to impact games with the ball in his hands less. Steven Jackson's presence means Diaw functions less like a point forward than last season. He isn't finding other ways to help. Over the 6 games prior to Saturday's trip to Miami, Diaw was averaging 10 minutes between rebounds. His 3-point shooting percentage has plummeted from 41% last season to 30% this season. So the prediction, Boris Diaw will keep looking out of place. Did that come true or did it not?
Yeah, he was out of this place soon after that, right?
Well, yeah, he would still be with the Bobcats the following season, but then leave. So yeah, and his
asked not to come back. Right?
Well, he asked
to stay home.
asked very nicely. I mean, his points per game dropped pretty precipitously from that first season where he was traded to the Bobcats, and he would. I mean, they just couldn't figure out a way to make it all work with one Stack Jack rose. It was like Stack Jack's rise was Boris Diaw's fall, and he couldn't stay in shape. And there was just all kinds of issues there with
man.
Diaw.
These were pretty hot takes. I mean, looking back, I mean, not you know, but I mean,
kind of nailed them.
Bold prediction. Yeah, I know. I mean, no one knew the NBA in Charlotte like Rick. That's for sure.
Here we go. Number 4, either Felton or DJ Augustine is gone. Not enough room in this saloon for these two guys. Rick writes, I'm not saying in the next month or even next summer, but it seems highly unlikely the Bobcats will commit long-term to retaining both point guards. The only way I could see the Bobcats affording them both, because they were already, they had, you know, kind of gone all out to construct this roster with Stack Jack and Gerald Wallace and make the playoff run. I think they were capped out. The only way I could see Bobcats affording them both is if Augustine continues to struggle so much his eventual free agent market dries up, and if that happened, I think he'd want to get a fresh start somewhere else. Did this come true?
Well, he kind of tiptoed around this one, right? He said, wasn't sure if it's going to happen immediately. I mean, they both ended up leaving. Yes. Was this when? Well, didn't Ray sign with the Knicks after this
Ray went
season?
first. Yeah. Ray went
Yeah.
first after this season. And then so after this playoff run, Ray went to New York and it was DJ's team. And then that didn't work. So the final prediction, Gerald Wallace misses the All-Star game.
Well, you know that he played in one. Did he get an injury replacement for this year? Or was it too much? I think it was the next year.
Ooh, unfortunately, you and Rick got this wrong. The Gerald Wallace would, in this season, 2009, 2010, get his sole All-Star appearance, and it was the sole All-Star appearance for a Bobcat in this season. 76 games played, 41 minutes per game, David. Gerald Wallace played 41 minutes per game, had a field goal percentage of 48%, 37% from three, didn't take many of them, but he averaged 18 points per game and 10 rebounds. He averaged
he must have made it this
double.
year. If they went to the playoffs, in the playoff contention, they would have said, hey, we need somebody from the Bobcats in there, I guess.
Really
and
great
also,
Bob.
will you do the dunk contest? And he should have been like everyone else and said, I will not.
Yeah. Nobody should do the dunk contest anymore. That's my big hot take.
Well, when you got like Jonathan Kuminga, guys that really
nobody knows how to
haven't
judge
even
it, David. No one can judge.
And they're like, nah, I'm going to be playing too much. I can't do the dunk contest this year. Playing too much. I can't do the dunk contest this year.
Get rid of it,
guys.
Get rid of it. Nobody knows how to participate in it. Nobody knows how to win it.
Fix this.
Nobody knows how to
We're
judge
it. Fix this thing.
No, you can't. Sometimes you got to know when to let go. Sometimes you got to know when to rebuild, like the Bobcats after this season.
They said playoffs, done it. Enough.
So those were the predictions from Rick Bonnell. He nailed almost all of them. This Bobcat, he could sense it. He could sense that the Bobcats were not, even though, but at this point, when he writes this, they're 13 and 18.
Yeah.
Like this team would go on to win 44 games. I want to look at the overall. But they were 5 games under 500 at this point, but they would end up finishing 44 and 38, the same record that Borrego got fired with. They finished 4th in the NBA Southeast Division, though. That's crazy to me. You win 44 games, and you almost finish last in your division because they were in it with Orlando, with Dwight Howard, those Atlanta Hawks teams that were just regular season forces and playoff duds. Miami would also get it together. And Miami, this was just the Dwayne Wade putting the team on his back kind of situation. Because, that was Jermaine O'Neal. That was Jamal McGlure, shout out, former Hornet. This was just Dwayne Wade going superstar mode and getting his team 47 wins. Of course, LeBron was leading Cavaliers to the top seed in the Eastern Conference, 61 wins, and Boston had 50 as well. So, good season, I think. But didn't it feel like, because you remember this more than I do, because I was not really paying too much attention to the Bobcats at this time, didn't it? But I seemed to even talk to friends who did pay attention to this team, and I was like, man, it looks like they're going to make the playoffs, but it felt like false gold, right? Like it felt like they had just gone all in to make the playoffs, but there was just zero shot of them really making any true noise, and certainly not a lot of shot at them sustaining the success.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the balance on this team. I mean, terrific defensive team. Look at
first
that
in the
rating.
NBA,
first opponent points per game, first in the NBA. The problem, Doug, was they could not score enough to win any of these games, and they didn't really have that dynamic score past. Steven Jackson, not a lot of depth there, and it felt like, to your point, they were capping out. I mean, they were gone in. They had brought Larry Brown in. They were trying to make the playoffs. Right? Something I guess they're still trying to do. But you could kind of see the writing on the wall, as Rick did there, and just say this team is not good enough to make any real noise. A lot of it having to do with guys like Dwight Howard they had to go up against, Dwayne Wade, of course, in Miami. and then just the landscape of the league at the time. They didn't have any of that dynamic backcourt, and the team, felt capped out. But I will say that did not diminish the enthusiasm, especially around those home playoff games. They did a whiteout, a lot of excitement in the building, a lot of buzz around downtown. Charlotte was ready for some playoff basketball, and it was fun to be there, and there was a lot of hype around it, and it was a little disappointing to see them obviously get swept, but then just the dismantling this team and going full rebuild on something that I guess they were kind of at the end of the road, but gosh, it felt like they could have at least gotten a little further the next year by adding a few more pieces or getting a little more creative, which, they just chose not to do. And obviously Larry Brown, kind of saw that coming as well, did not finish out the season. And that was just the beginning of a very, very steep downturn. That was no fun for anyone.
It was a dramatic 3-year downturn. So I've got the cleaning the glass stats up, and yeah, Larry Brown comes in and revitalizes a defense that was doing nothing. The offense was also doing nothing those first few Bobcats years. He revitalizes the defense, gets them to 8th in the first season, then 4th. It was first in defensive rating, but cleaning the glass has them at 4th in points per possession. But the offense just never improved. The effective field goal percentage was not very good. The turnover percentage for both of those Larry Brown good defensive seasons was last in the league. I mean, they were just turnover fiends. They were a good offensive rebounding team, manufacturing points via second chance, but just could not score in the half court. And then, they become, that historic team that was last in the league in offense, last in the league in defense, just historically bad for 2 straight seasons, really, 11-12 and 12-13. They were the 7-59 season obviously was the worst. And then they come out of that into the new Bobcats era into Clifford, and Clifford turns the team around and makes them a little bit more balanced offensively and defensively. And that he's certainly preaching that now, David. He wants them to be balanced offensively and defensively. I'm not sure if he has the tools. I just feel bad for Clifford. Like he just never gets. He just never gets the ingredients. He never gets the good stuff.
I know. And he's been on those benches with Howard and with Kobe, and he's seen superstars, and he just hasn't had one. He's got LaMelo. It feels like they've brought him back to be a bit of a caretaker as we're looking forward here, Doug, and just to shepherd them through whatever this hellscape of an offseason was. I saw old Kenny Atkinson sitting in the second row of the bench back there. I mean, they could, hey, it didn't even get a seat on the front row, but
I'm sure I'm pretty positive he doesn't. I'm pretty positive he doesn't.
He looked pretty relaxed. I mean, I'll be honest.
I can't imagine that Kenny knew about all of this. I mean, I think he probably saw some other concerning things in terms of the franchise's thoughts on their plan. I mean, that's what worries me most about the plan is that Kenny got a good look at what was going on and was like, I don't know.
It still just seems, it seems insane to think, because it just doesn't happen. That kind of thing just doesn't happen. I'm going to chalk it up to just Golden State, I guess, being such a plum job and a fantastic place to work and a great organization and all that stuff and championship pedigree. But yeah, they're certainly at an impasse, Doug, and they've got Clifford here again. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do. But I'll tell you what, that Bobcats team, it doesn't look like it was fun. It really doesn't, does it? I mean, you look at a team that can't score, that grinds down other teams, that's got a
Gerald Wallace was exciting to watch. It's interesting.
Right.
Like, they didn't have a lot of depth. They really, because Larry Brown prided the team on defense, they probably weren't allowed to do some things offensively. But Stack Jack was capable of 40 any night.
Yeah, and when you look at it from that standpoint, Stack Jack, interesting guy. Larry Brown, curmudgeon, but provided some sparks every now and then, and great press conference guy. Gerald Wallace, team favorite, Hornets legend, Bobcats legend. Sorry, but it was also like, whoa, he's obviously going to break something at some point. He's going to keep diving over these tables, and he's going to crash down. But he had been with the team since expansion, so it was just a very odd time. Bob Johnson sells the team. MJ's coming in. And they made the playoffs. They made the playoffs, Doug. You give this town a winning product, you know, and you see some
yeah, I mean,
enthusiasm.
something that the Hornets, they've made the play-in the past couple of years, but they can't make the playoffs. Now, obviously, to get to a series because of this play-in, and it was, I guess, somewhat easier if you could obtain the seed, but the Hornets have not even been seeded such that they would have made the playoffs in previous seasons. So yeah, I mean, making the playoffs, you don't want to take that for granted. And we won't here on Every Hornets Box Score. Every team, we'll appreciate every single Bobcats and Hornets team that actually did the thing and went into postseason play. David, thank you very much for taking this trip down Bobcats memory lane. Always appreciate your insight. And thank you to everyone that has supported this show so far. We can't wait to do more of these in the future. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the Substack. I'm going to have my game notes on this Spurs game ready for you. I've been posting them. They're generally right after the game.
They're great. Folks, if you're not in tune with Every Hornets Box Score, if you're not getting those things fed straight to your inbox every day, I mean, it is
intravenous.
You don't even need. Let me tell you what. You don't even need to watch the game. Okay, I know. Let me just say that right up front. If you don't have CSET, if you don't have Bally's, if you're on Clipper Vision, you get this box score, you feel like you're right there. And sometimes you get that bad feeling too, but it's not Doug's fault. He's just telling you what happened. Okay.
No, it's true. I think people are, I think fans are going to have to make some estimations about how much they really want to invest of their personal time into this season. And so here's what I'm offering you. I'm saying, if you get on a random Wednesday or Thursday night and you're like, you know what, I can't do it tonight. I'd rather hang with the family. I'd rather, clip my toenails. Fine. But you don't want to get behind, right? You don't want to, when they finally do start winning, you don't want to forget everything that's happened or not be part of it. That's what I'm offering you with the game notes. You can be part of it. You can still clip your toenails and get some time away from the Hornets. That's really what I'm offering you. So, but I appreciate those kind words, David. We will be back again next week with another box score. Thank you so much. Until then, go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.